Darkly Dreaming Dexter is a novel by Jeff Lindsay. It turned into a television program about a serial killer, Dexter. Uh, but Dexter in this story wasn't the antagonist. He was the hero. He was the one you loved and the one that you felt for. He was, in the most part, a likable and seemingly normal and average guy. And this was the beauty of the show. You could see the goodness in this man, the goodness in his life, except for this one part. He was a serial killer. So this past week we touched upon light and dark and how we as the church must acknowledge our sin if we are to have transformative relationship with God or with each other. Now, you'll see in the sermon notes provided in the weekly blog some questions around how we wrestle with being honest about our sin. Because we must have the courage to invite the light of God into our dark spaces. That is the only way we allow God to transform us, to transform the part of our life that Dexter would call his dark passenger. Part of this is creating patterns that are of a devotional life. Patterns that do not separate who we are on a Sunday or as a Christian and who we are in all parts of life. So in the 1728 publication of William Law's book, A Serious Call to a Devout and Holy Life, he opens with this short paragraph. Devotion is neither private nor public prayer, but a life given to God. He is the devout man, therefore, who considers and serves God in everything, and who makes all of his life an act of devotion by doing everything in the name of God and under such rules as are conformable to his glory. You know, if you open a book with that sort of paragraph, it's going to be a serious text. But he's talking really about this light and darkness, that we cannot balance light and darkness, that we cannot separate our Sunday morning worship personhood from the rest of our personhood. And 1 John says this as well in chapter 1 verse 6, that if we say we have fellowship while we walk in darkness, we lie and we do not practice truth. So the tumult in Dexter's life was that he could not live with both a foot in the light and a foot in the darkness. In fact, slowly you saw the darkness eat him. But nor can we. Nor can any of our sin remain without asking God to bring a light onto it. Because we cannot have fellowship as God wants us to if we continue to deceive ourselves and not acknowledge completely our sin. And in a wonderful podcast of Renovare, James Catford had the recognition that, you know, I was always taught to keep these things separate. It says at the time you would keep the two worlds far apart, the God world and the job world, or just any other part of our world. And that the really spiritual people, he thought, were the ones that would keep these things as far apart as possible. You escape the world, he said, to be with God. But James realized the lie and similarly acknowledges that, you know, spiritual life cannot hold both light and dark. He was inspired by William Law's book. He was inspired by the stories that were told of people who were able to craft a spiritual life that acknowledges God in the entirety of life. And to do this, we need to be kind with ourselves, he says. One of the realizations is that we need to be kind with ourselves and know God's mercy. It's kind of a humbling of ourselves, that it's not our mercy, that it is God's mercy. We hear that in 1 John 2:2. But if anyone does sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous. So I want us to think about, how much faith do we display to God when we come to Him in prayer? Do we grovel for forgiveness, almost questioning His mercy? Or do we come knowing we are forgiven, confident that His light will transform the darkness of our own? Where may we be straddling both dark and light? So please join us this week as we continue looking at 1 John. We jump into chapter 2 this week, again exploring light and darkness, but not from the lens of sin, but instead of how we are living His commandments. So join us this Sunday at 8 a.m. or 9:30 a.m. or online. God bless. Amen.